In the headlines, the two Koreas exchange fire after a North Korean naval vessel violates the western maritime border just a couple of days after agreeing to hold another round of high-level dialogue with the South. Samsung Electronics tips a stunning decline in its third quarter earnings, expected to hit the lowest in more than 3 years in the face of competition from Apple and Chinese brands. And a nurse in Spain gets Ebola, becoming the first person who contracts the virus outside the West Africa, raising global concerns. Welcome to the newscast, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Coming to you live from Seoul, I am Kang Chery. It's an expected but still disappointing earnings guidance. Samsung Electronics tips its third quarter operating profit to drop about 60% on year. The bigger screen iPhone 6 and cheaper models from China are taking away Samsung's mobile business. Ji-yeon reports.
Samsung Electronics posted its worst quarterly earnings in 3 years. In a provisional report released ahead of official figures due around the end of the month, the company says its operating profits dropped to $3.8 billion in the third quarter. That's a near 60% drop from the same period last year. Third quarter sales dropped more than 20% from the same period last year to $44 billion, mainly due to lagging sales of its high-end smartphones.
The rise of competitors in China is seen as the main factor behind Samsung's declining global smartphone market share. The popularity of Apple's iPhone 6 and 6 Plus are also believed to have had an impact as consumers held back to wait for the new models, which were released last month.
Eroding profits in its mobile unit has in turn affected other Samsung units that supply things like displays and processor chips. The analyst says the star performer was the chip business, which was expected to account for nearly half the third quarter profit. Due to this, a pickup in the fourth quarter is unlikely as saturation in the high-end smartphone market is further driving down unit prices of Samsung smartphones while increasing the company's marketing expenses. Samsung says it's preparing for new smartphone lineups with innovative designs and new materials. It's also developing mid to low-end devices to compete in the ever-evolving market. Ji-yeon, ARIRANG News.
Korea's exports in the information, communications, and technology sector hit an 11-month high in September. The ICT exports grew 9% on year to hit $15.4 billion last month on the back of strong sales of display panels, computer devices, and tablet PCs. In particular, exports of semiconductors hit an all-time high of nearly $6 billion. Korea's handset exports, though, were down 5% with the launch of Apple's latest iPhone 6 models and the continued rise of Chinese manufacturers like Xiaomi. Now on to one type of business facing tough competition in Korea. With convenience stores on virtually every corner, they're now trying to think outside of the box to attract new customers. Our Kim Min-ji takes us through some of their more unconventional services.
Convenience stores in Korea are pushing to become more convenient than ever, evolving into so-called living stores that cater to the everyday needs of consumers. The number of convenience stores has jumped more than 60% from just 4 years ago. This translates into roughly one convenience store per 2,000 people. And it's growing to become a $12 billion industry this year. But with quantitative growth approaching its peak, convenience stores are now seeking new sources of profit by offering a new range of products and customizing stores to meet the individual needs of customers.
7-Eleven offers diverse products depending on store locations. In this store, we sell flowers and have imported a French underwear brand. We're also planning to offer more products that meet the needs of single-person households.
Non-food products now make up about 17% of 7-Eleven sales, and the plan is to boost that figure to 20% next year. GS25, another popular convenience store, is offering a lineup of tech goods from cell phones and televisions to water purifiers. And some take it to another level by offering space to enjoy a cup of coffee or hold meetings.
I didn't know these rooms existed. I hope to use one in the future with my friends when I do team assignments.
Customers can reserve these rooms at just $1 per hour, along with free Wi-Fi access, printing facilities, and laptop rentals.
We created this space with the purpose of attracting more customers by offering convenience. People visit our store not just to buy food, but to spend time.
By shifting focus from their traditional money makers like instant foods towards new goods and services, convenience stores are striving to be more than just a quick stop shop. Kim Min-ji, ARIRANG News.
The two Koreas briefly exchanged fire today near the western maritime border. This after a North Korean patrol boat crossed south of the de facto maritime border in the West Sea. South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff says warning messages were given and shots were fired. The North Korean vessel returned fire but turned back a short time later. Although it's not rare to see this type of incursion by North Korean, it could be seen as a mixed signal as it comes just a couple of days after three top North Korean officials made a surprise visit to South Korea. And during that surprise visit to South Korea, North Korea agreed to have another high-level talks with the South. And North Korea watchers say Pyongyang will be asking Seoul to lift sanctions that were imposed on the regime back in 2010. So what are the prospects of that happening? Our Hwang Sung-hee tells us more.
When officials from the North and South sit down for talks in the coming weeks, the easing of sanctions imposed by Seoul 4 years ago will be a top priority for North Korea. The sanctions, instituted in response to the North's sinking of a South Korean warship, ban nearly all inter-Korean economic activities except those within the Kaesong industrial complex. Seoul says Pyongyang must assume responsibility for its involvement in the 2010 incident.
For the May 24th sanctions to be lifted, our stance is that North Korea must first take responsible steps that can be fully accepted by the South Korean public.
Considering North Korea had been raking in $3 billion annually from cross-border trade before the sanctions, its losses amount to at least $15 billion. In that time, Pyongyang's dependence on China has increased, its trade with Beijing standing at around $6.5 billion last year. Addressing concerns that the sanctions are standing in the way of improving inter-Korean ties, President Park Geun-hye has shown some flexibility. South Korean companies are taking part in a fresh trilateral project with Russia and North Korea, building a railway running from the North Korean port of Najin to the Russian town of Hassan. But before South Korea lifts any sanctions, it will also have to take into consideration the handful of international sanctions that have been slapped on Pyongyang over the years. Hwang Sung-hee, ARIRANG News.
Japan's foreign minister says he will consider removing a comment on the ministry website that says the wartime sexual enslavement was a clear violation of human rights and the dignity of women. Speaking at Parliament on Monday, Fumio Kishida said his ministry will soon decide whether to delete it or add extra commentary. The statement introduces the Asian Women's Fund, which received private donations for the sex slave victims from 1995 to 2007. The minister was responding to a question by an opposition lawmaker who said he did not believe Japan coerced women to sexual slavery in the early 20th century.
For the latest in news that impacts Korea and the world, join Kang Chery for a lively half hour that covers politics, business, international news, and much more. Live at 8 every weeknight on ARIRANG TV.
Human Rights Council headquarters in Geneva on Thursday, finding ways to President Park Geun-hye says overcoming a 7 decades-long division on the Korean peninsula and laying the foundation for a peaceful unification are historical tasks for all Koreans, marking an annual day to define Korean identity for some 7.2 million Koreans living abroad and to instill pride. President Park Geun-hye talked about her vision of unification and efforts to prepare for the unprecedented process and asked overseas Koreans for their support. President Park also vowed customized support to help Koreans at home as well as abroad to coexist and develop together. President Park Geun-hye is also seeking to secure a better foothold in West Africa and throughout the continent. Following a summit with Côte d'Ivoire, President Alassane Ouattara in Seoul on Tuesday, Korea signed a memorandum of understanding with the West African country to bolster bilateral economic cooperation. Seoul also asked Côte d'Ivoire support for Korean firms to more actively participate in this region's infrastructure and construction projects. African diplomacy has been an important part of President Park Geun-hye's foreign diplomacy, and the leaders of Uganda and Mozambique were the first 2 world leaders to visit Seoul after President Park took office last year. This year's Nobel Physics Prize has been awarded to 3 Japanese-born scientists for their invention of blue light-emitting diodes, commonly known as energy-efficient LED lights. Professors Isamu Akasaki and Hiroshi Amano of Japan and Shuji Nakamura of the United States were named winners of this prestigious prize Tuesday in Stockholm, which includes $1.2 million in prize money. The Nobel Prizes in chemistry, literature, and peace will be announced later this week, while the winner for economic sciences will be named on October 13th. So Nobel Prize season has begun, with the first one being awarded in the area of medicine yesterday. 3 scientists solved this riddle that has occupied the minds of philosophers and scientists for centuries. And our Park Ji-yeon explains their discovery and how that could end up helping those suffering from Alzheimer's.
The team of British-American neuroscientists John O'Keefe and Norwegian researchers May-Britt Moser and Edvard Moser discovered the human brain's GPS system. Their studies dates back to 1971, when O'Keefe found that certain nerve cells were activated when the lab rat found itself in a particular place. He named these nerves, which are located in the brain's hippocampus, place cells. Then decades later, in 2005, the Norwegian husband and wife team of neuroscientists discovered that other nerve cells in a nearby part of the brain called the entorhinal cortex become active when rats passed certain locations. The team found that these so-called grid cells work together with the place cells in the hippocampus, allowing for 3D spatial navigation, not just in rats but in humans as well. The groundbreaking discovery explains how the brain perceives its surrounding environment, knows where we are, and is able to guide us from point A to point B through a map inside the brain.
It will help us to understand how memory works, both specifically for spatial memory, but also more broadly for a large class of memories.
If you find the basic principles that control how the brain operates, we'll be able to, in the long term, to treat all kinds of neurological and psychiatric diseases, not only Alzheimer's.
The trio of scientists will receive 8 million Swedish crowns, or some $1.1 million, for broadening our understanding of the human brain's cognitive functions. It's expected that their studies could ultimately benefit those suffering from various brain diseases, such as dementia, which affects some 44 million people worldwide. Park Ji-yeon, ARIRANG News.
It's not news that Korean parents are willing to spend some big money on their children's English education, but here's new data that hammers home the point. A study shows parents with children in elementary school or younger spend an average of $150 a month on private English education. That's more than twice as much than they do on Korean education. This is according to a survey conducted by an English tutoring institute last month on more than 500 parents. The respondents cited the growing importance of English in society and a lack of public English education as reasons for their increased spending. It's fall here in Korea, and that usually means there are a countless number of festivals taking place around the country. And if you can't manage to venture too far away from the capital, you might want to pay extra attention to this next report coming up, as our Sun Jung-in gives us the details about 3 festivals taking place on the outskirts of Seoul.
Producing a thunderous noise, the Black Eagles demonstrate their acrobatic moves, crisscrossing in perfect unison. Using the sky as a canvas on which to draw, the aerobatic team glides through the air, sketching different pictures with the white smoke from their tails. The vast sky is filled with planes shooting high into the air and plunging down again.
The most interesting maneuvers are the tumbles, where the airplane literally tumbles head over heels, and also the reverse airflow maneuvers, where the airplane goes backwards. Also, the airplane can be flown in knife-edge flight on its side for long periods of time, and of course inverted.
Also in Gyeonggi-do Province, the Yeoju Ceramic Festival is in full swing this week in the city of Yeoju. The festival features many ceramic works from various artists, as well as a range of hands-on activities such as baking your own pottery creation or smashing them to relieve your stress away. And over in the nearby city of Suwon, the Suwon Hwasong Cultural Festival will get underway, inviting local and foreign visitors to Hwasong Fortress, a UNESCO World Cultural Heritage Site. Visitors can have fun while learning more about Korea's Joseon Dynasty era.
There are so many festivals taking place this week in Gyeonggi-do Province. We have the Air Show and the Suwon Festival. I hope people take some time to enjoy this splendid weather with their family and friends.
Sun Jung-in, ARIRANG News.
A nurse in Spain has been confirmed by health officials as the first person to contract the deadly Ebola virus outside of West Africa. And for more, Paul Lee is joining us from the news center. Paul, this Ebola scare has hit Europe. And with this unprecedented case striking the continent for the very first time, what were the circumstances behind this infection?
Well, health authorities in Madrid say they're still investigating exactly how this 45-year-old nurse came down with the disease, despite taking every precaution while working at a hospital. The development has the European Commission demanding answers, and it's also prompted the World Health Organization to beef up global awareness on the growing health crisis. Our Shin Se-min reports.
A Spanish nurse has become the first person to contract the Ebola virus outside West Africa in the current outbreak. Spain's health minister confirmed Monday that the woman, described as sanitary technician, had treated 2 Ebola patients in Madrid who later died. She has been transferred to a hospital in Madrid for treatment, and 30 healthcare workers who came into contact with her will remain under observation for 3 weeks. In the United States, the Obama administration is working on bolstering its defenses against Ebola.
We're also going to be working on protocols to do additional passenger screening, both at the source and here in the United States. All of these things make me confident that here in the United States, at least, the chances of an outbreak of an epidemic here are extraordinarily low.
6 people have so far been treated for Ebola in the United States. 1 American man developed symptoms a week or so after coming into contact with an infected person in Liberia. The administration says a travel ban from West Africa is not an option at the moment. Looking to raise global awareness, the World Health Organization announced Monday that although Ebola is not an airborne virus like flu, it can be passed through breast milk and urine. The WHO stressed in particular that the virus can persist in semen for at least 70 days. Ebola can also be transmitted through direct contact with the bodily fluids of an infected person, including blood, sweat, and saliva. Shin Se-min, ARIRANG News.
And turning to the Middle East, Paul, Islamic State militants have broken through into the Syrian border town of Kobani as they continue to clash with Kurdish forces there. How is the battle playing out on the ground?
Well, there's been reports of fierce fighting in the streets along with heavy civilian casualties. Turkish resistance fighters have been losing ground and are repeatedly calling for international support in their fight. IS is said to have seized control of Kobani's eastern district. Their iconic black flag seen planted there, which is now visible from the Turkish border. The attacks triggered 180,000 Turkish Syrians to flee to neighboring Turkey in fear of mass violence and torture in the wake of the extremist group. Airstrikes by American and Gulf state warplanes failed to halt the advance on Kobani, which was besieged from 3 sides and pounded with heavy artillery. IS forces have pushed for control of Kobani for almost 3 weeks now in a bid to control the northern Syrian territory.
And in the U.S., the Supreme Court has allowed the expansion of a same-sex marriage in America by not ruling on the appeals by 5 states seeking to uphold their bans. So, of course, human rights groups have welcomed this decision. How did the ruling stand?
Well, the 9 Supreme Court justices refused to review lower court rulings that had struck down gay marriage bans in Wisconsin, Indiana, Oklahoma, Utah, and Virginia. While they did not offer an explanation for their inaction, it's being viewed as a statement that the Supreme Court does not think it's wrong to allow same-sex couples to legally marry, as any ban would violate the Constitution. Following the announcement, the Attorney General for the state of Virginia hailed the ruling as a victory for equal rights.
This is the outcome. A new day has dawned, and the rights guaranteed by our Constitution are shining through. All Virginians have the constitutional right to be treated fairly and equally, to have loving, committed relationships recognized and respected, and to enjoy the blessings of married life.
The move is expected to set a major precedent, clearing the way for gay marriage to be legal in 30 states, which is up from 19 plus the District of Columbia. Meanwhile, challenges are pending in the remaining 20 states.
And finally, a team of engineers in Mexico has developed a new high-tech jacket that can track your health and fitness, paving the way for the next generation of smart wearables, and this is certainly the trend. So this looks like an amazing piece of technology, but the big question is, will this get me into shape?
Well, I'm not certain if it will get you into shape, but I am sure it's going to get people excited about exercising in new and innovative ways. Designed for joggers, the jacket called Podium not only measures your heart rate and body temperature, but any kind of movement. In order to collect the data, the smart jacket is packed with sensors and can even be recharged using embedded solar panels. Created at the National Autonomous University of Mexico, the smart jacket also feeds vital signs and performance information to smartphones in real time. But aside from the cutting-edge features, the development team said they focus on merging form with function.
We designed several versions of the jacket until we came up with a design that could cover the electronics throughout the human body. The jacket is made of laser-printed waterproof material. This breathable material allows runners to keep cool.
The first batch of jackets has already been made, and the team plans to start filling orders by early next year. According to research firm Juniper, the global smart wearables industry is expected to reach $53 billion in terms of revenue by 2019. Chery?
You know, the jacket could collect data and can keep you cool, but you have to be the one who is working out and running around, right? Anyways, good stuff there, Paul. Thank you so much for those stories, and we'll see you back here in just about 2 hours.
Happy Tuesday, I'm Kim Bo-kyung with your weather updates. It was yet another beautiful autumn day here in Korea under clear skies due to a high-pressure system from China. Those of you headed home should keep in mind that temperatures will drop to the low teens as the night progresses. Also on Wednesday evening, we'll be able to check out the first total lunar eclipse in 3 years, starting from about 7:24 p.m. Now we have a national holiday coming up. This Thursday is Hangul Proclamation Day, and the good news is that Mother Nature should continue to be on our side that day. On to Wednesday's readings. Seoul, it's 24, Daegu and Gwangju 25. On to other regions. Daejeon and Jeju reached 23, Dokdo 20, Kumgang 13. That does it for me for now. I'll be back with more updates after 10. See you then.
Yes, see you then, Bo-kyung. Thank you so much. And that will do it for this edition of ARIRANG News. Thanks for watching.